On immigration, I will direct the Department of Labor to investigate all abuses of visa programs that undercut the American worker.
Tight restrictions from the US will compel tech companies and talent to seek alternative investments. Sumedh Deorukhar, BBVA, Hong Kong. Donald Trump says the H1B visa program, which is mostly used to hire technology workers, is a cheap labour program that takes jobs away from Americans. India is the biggest recipient of this visa. Is the visa being scrapped, and what will it mean for India?
I think we should wait for the final status of the executive order to ascertain its impact. So far, from what one gathers, the new administration in the US plans to tighten the standards for issuing the visa with a preference for high-skilled workers, rather than actually scrapping the program altogether. For instance, any increase in base salary requirements for H1B visa holders, I think, would hurt the margin for Indian tech companies. Also, I think the executive order combined with the overall tighter immigration scenario in the US would certainly, I think, would deprive India of the revenue and employment. Roughly, I think we are looking at about 35,000 H1B visas issued to IT companies. I think that's a significant amount. But I think overall, from a longer term perspective, I think the impact on India really depends on how effectively Indian as well as global tech companies react to such regulatory changes in the US. So I think tighter restrictions from the US would compel tech companies and the talent in the IT sector to seek alternative investments.
The Indian interest rate remained at 6.25 in the previous report. What can you tell us about the RBI's reading today?
I think it's going to be a tough call for RBI to take. We are expecting about 25 basis points of rate cut. The reasons being inflation is benign, private sector investments are sluggish with a negative growth, and the government has also committed to fiscal consolidation in the recent budget. So I think banks are also transmitting the past rate cuts in line with RBI's expectations. We also have a hit to the economy, in the temporary hit to the economy from the demonetization. So overall, a rate cut case is certainly quite strong this time. Primarily, I think the uncertain global policy outlook, including we have the Fed rate hikes coming in, so the pace of the hikes needs to be watched. We need to know the extent of trade protectionism, particularly from the US. There's also a lot of political uncertainty in the Eurozone, and also the economic developments in China need to be watched. We need to watch out also for the rising oil and commodity price environment. So overall, I think the overall longer term picture in terms of rates does, I think, remain cautious. It's not going to be a one way for RBI in terms of its rate cutting cycle from here on.
The Indian inflation rates will be released this week. The last reading showed a 3.41% increase year on year. Will consumer prices continue to rise?
I think the inflation outlook in the near term for India does look favorable. We expect CPI inflation to be markedly undershooting RBI's target of 5% by March end, and to stay within the 4 to 6% comfort zone over the medium term. If you look at the breakup, I think food inflation is broadly stabilizing at low levels, primarily thanks to supply side measures by the government. A little bit of worries on the core inflation front, where the momentum, although it has slowed sequentially, it does remain high and sticky. On the downside, I think the hit to domestic demand from demonetization will weigh on the near-term inflation outlook. That said, I think favorable base effects, which we saw in the previous months, are beginning to fade, and we also see rising oil and commodity prices. Another important thing on the domestic factor for inflation is the uncertain monsoon rains, which can provide some upside risk to inflation. Having said that, I think globally we are looking at PPI inflation, the producer price inflation, generally rising, particularly in China. I think that should have an impact on India's overall inflation outlook through the trade channel. So that needs to be watched.
Thank you for your time today, and thank you at home for clicking back. I'm Kaz Kahil, and until next time, goodbye for now.